currently watching this Netflix series. It's called Life on Our Planet, and it's so crazy. They said that everything descended from Luca. It's like the first thing. It's like the central origin. Isn't that crazy? Kind of crazy how everything came from the water. Okay, the first thing produced is Luca, the tiny living cell. This is biology with cute doll. Luca, the last universal common ancestor. Okay, then after that, the next life form is the invertebrates that ruled the sea for millions of years, many millions. So then the plants were growing on land, and then they allowed the invertebrates to follow onto the land, out of the water onto the land. Then now the amphibians developed, and they're also from the water. Amphibians have 4 limbs and a backbone, and that was like the blueprint for success according to this documentary quote. So basically the invertebrates were first and they didn't have any backbones. But then when these amphibians came next, they had the limbs and the backbone. Amphibians can go onto land, but they're tied to the water. But then next it was reptiles that spawned. But I didn't realize this is a dinosaur documentary, and now they're saying about the dinosaurs. Okay, for the dinosaurs, when I was little, I did go to the museum and see all the fossils and everything, but how could it be possible that dinosaurs were even, isn't that crazy? Doesn't it seem kind of like really difficult to believe that they would be real even though there's evidence? Yeah, I just know there's so many like archaeologists and stuff that have done research with the fossils and stuff, but how do you know like what it looked like? How do you know what color it was? How do you know what the texture of its skin was? How do you know what it ate? It was just, I know there's a lot of science around them, but it's just really weird. Also, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT right now, isn't it kind of weird like how things were always just like changing and evolving, like just that little timeline I just said, but then all of a sudden like we don't even see that in our world today? Let me ask ChatGPT. Explanation from ChatGPT, it kind of made sense, but it's basically saying things are still evolving now, just in smaller ways or different ways, like how bacteria can be resistant to like how bacteria can develop resistances, and how like humans are like intolerant to lactose and all these weird things. I just don't think it just makes no sense. But it does say that all of those steps took millions of years. It took millions of years, and that we're only seeing a small slice of time, so we don't see it like that dramatic of a change. And I believe this part more is like everything is already well adapted to its environment. But they said that dinosaurs evolved into birds, so all of the birds came from the lineage of dinosaurs. They said that some birds are still evolving, that how like their wingspans change and stuff like that. I just don't know though. Those were big jumps, you know? Out of the shadows of dinosaurs rose mammals, they said. But I thought that, well, ChatGPT said that dinosaurs evolved into birds, but I guess both. That kind of doesn't make any sense, because how could the dinosaurs turn into mammals if everything was like a great calamity happened that destroyed the dinosaurs? There's just too much gaps. I don't know if I was talking to you guys about this. I don't remember, but now they're talking about genes, which I am down for. So basically the different combination of genes led to different chances of, you know, expression of those genes and probability of survivability, and also how adaptable that organism would be to surviving. So I believe that. I could see that now. Then the genetics and the DNA just mutates and then it becomes a new species. I could see that, okay, because it becomes so different, and then is the best ones are surviving and they're adapting, and then there's mutations, so new ones form. Okay, I believe that. About the dinosaurs thing, I know dinosaurs were real because obviously they found all of the evidence, all the bones, all the fossils and everything. But everything else about it, like how they know what color it was, how they know what it looked like how they have like a very, like a T-Rex looks like this and a Bronchosaur looks like this or whatever. It's weird. It's weird to me because it's like there's so much stuff we don't know, especially we don't know how the dinosaurs are, why they're not here anymore. Oh, I did hear one theory. Okay, so I heard a lot of different theories. Like I heard that there was like an earthquake, a Big Bang theory, and then I also heard that like how the dinosaurs were too big, so they didn't like survive. I don't know though. I'm not saying the dinosaurs are not real. I'm just saying like all the other stuff that we made up about them. It's like, how do you know? Like I could see how they could figure out like what kind of food it eats, probably because of like the teeth and stuff and different stuff like that, or lots of reasons, but it was just, this is crazy. Now the plants would adapt things like poison for its survival so that when insects try to eat it, that would happen, and literally it would save the plant, prevent it from getting destroyed, dying. So okay, that's kind of cool. I see how one influences the other. And now a new species of caterpillar evolves that can eat the poisonous leaf and not be affected by it. So I see how it's like a battle of survival, genetics, gene expression, gene mutation, and just nature just kind of just making more stuff to kind of see which one's going to be better and survive, and keep adapting and surviving and adapting with the gene mutation and gene shifting. Okay, so when those caterpillars are eating the poisonous plants, they also would eat the eggs that are on the leaves. So the butterflies now adapted to lay their eggs on leaves that do not have eggs, so that if those caterpillars spawn that are like the dangerous ones that can eat through poisonous leaves and eat other eggs, their eggs won't be destroyed. So that's survival, like because that butterfly got smarter and made that decision, then now its eggs are protected and its lineage can live on. So that's really cool. I just don't understand how this happens. Now it's saying that it literally said the plants retaliate and form little growths on them that look like eggs so that the butterfly won't lay eggs on it? What? It's just like war of nature. Then the little fake eggs on the plants produce nectar, and then it attracts ants which feed on the caterpillars. It's crazy. It's saying those that adapt the most is going to survive and carry on their genes. We know that. But it's now saying that competition drives adaptation. I think we can see that in today's society. It's saying the most acute form of competition comes from one's own kind. So we're competing within our own species now. Not only like for survival but against other species and stuff, but also just competing within our own. We're competing amongst ourselves. It drives adaptation. Yeah, because there's limited resources and obviously you want to survive. So I see. So the documentary, third rule is that Earth never stays stable for long. It's saying the volcanoes are emitting the chemicals into the air and causing mass extinction at some points. So that's like one example. The Earth is changing. It's getting hot, cold, lava, volcanoes, creating challenges for the species to survive. Species are getting wiped out just by things like a mass amount of rain and weather conditions, there's been mass extinctions. It said that it wiped out like 3/4 of the species. Okay, but there was one period where Earth was stable for 100 million years. Wondering like how come it was so unstable? Like all those weather changes, all those storms, droughts, flooding, all those things. Why? That's so weird. And there's the age of the dinosaurs. Earth became stable. Then you have the mightiest dynasty, the age of the dinosaurs. There was a period of calamity. It allowed the dinosaurs to proliferate in a huge bunch, in a huge amount of numbers. This is what I'm talking about. They're talking about the Maiasaur. How do they know that they had stripes on them like that? Like, I know the bones were preserved, but how do they know like what the skin looked like and how they had like the little like neck sag and everything? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Great answer. On the actual fossils, there are melanosomes, and the melanosomes are different shapes and it's indicative of the different colors that the pigment was on their skin. Cool. So they could tell like, oh, this had a stripe and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Do the Triceratops really form a wall with their horns in a herd against the T-Rex? How do you know that? How do you know that? How do they use their little, 3 horns? How? And the T-Rex really backed down? I think so, yeah. I think that the archaeologists and stuff, that they figured out that if all those species had to survive and they could see like the time that fossil was existing, if all those species had to coexist, it's like, how did they even survive? And then given that that thing has horns, it probably, and they all traveled in herds, their fossils were probably in a herd too. It's like, that's how they made a defensive wall. It's just guessing. I mean, you can only guess. Because they did survive. How, Asteroid the size of Mount Everest collided with Earth 20 times faster than the speed of a bullet. But were the dinosaurs all over the world or in one part of the world? I'll look that up. It says that they were all over the world. So the cloud blocked out the sunlight and it led to the death of all of the dinosaurs. Almost all dinosaurs. 3/4 of life on Earth, literally showing a visual of all of the cloud covering the entire world. I don't know. How do you know that? That looks really... They probably know it from the layers of Earth, how it shows what happened, but the whole world? Like, do you know how huge that is? It was the world's 5th mass extinction. Now it's saying the birds were the only remaining dinosaurs. See it yet, but maybe because they could fly above the clouds and have like still the sun and everything. Mammals also rose from the ashes. I'm gonna look up why. Well, maybe it'll tell me. The mammals used to be under the dinosaurs, but the asteroid strike wiped out the dinosaurs, and now we just have the birds left, which are descendants also with the dinosaur lineage, and then the mammals rule now. The mammals are already perfectly adapted to the challenges of life, and they also have a variety of diversification in their genes. That's exactly what my dad said. My dad was like, the dinosaurs were too big. So true. The birds were small, they could fly. They also had beaks instead of teeth, so they could survive off of like seeds and eating insects. They also laid small eggs, and then they were able to reproduce faster, so they didn't need like the large vegetation that the bigger animals needed. That was all wiped out by the meteoroid anyway, so the birds survived. 99% of all species that ever existed are now extinct. That's insane. Oh my god, that was just the intro. There's still 7 more episodes left. So I'm gonna switch over to true crime now. Maybe one day we'll get back to this. I wish they went into like human theories. But yeah, they want to go back to the underwater and how the underwater creatures were fighting for life. But we're gonna go to true crime now.